Sabrina 2000s comic, issue 24. Sabrina asks Salem how his trip to the other realm was. Wait, Salem's allowed to go there by himself? What's the point of turning him into a cat if he doesn't have to be supervised by his host family most of the time? He brings some souvenirs, including a shirt with her face on it. Why is she smiling at seeing that while questioning it? Wouldn't she be horrified at her likeness being used without her consent and knowledge? What kind of laws are there in the other realm? They'd be sued into stopping stuff like this. Sabrina's told that her game show appearance was a huge hit, and they reran it 50 times a day, so she's a celebrity in the other realm. Why would she be more memorable than most of the other contestants, other than the fact that she looks like a witch and not an unappealing alien? Salem's talking as if it's not normal for contestants on that show to become huge hits. That makes it even more confusing. Maybe most of them are aliens and Sabrina was only popular because she's not one. Salem says they've created a bunch of new surreality-based programs and asked them to show her the schedule in case she'd like to appear in another one. That's terrible. Having continuity nods helps me feel more invested in the comic universe than I'd be otherwise, but is it really worth it to have terrible stories be confirmed as canon? This story better be worth it. I like the idea so far. She's a main character. She doesn't want to be on TV again after last time, and then she gets forcibly warped away to a sensational show. Again, they get sued for this behavior. What if the person they warped over to them was going to the bathroom or something? This story sucks. Sabrina tells them that they might have copyright problems with their show Survivor, and oh, the writer thought of copyright, but the game show and merchandise still happened against Sabrina's will. If Sabrina loses the game show, she'd be eaten by a demon. They want to be able to do this. If she was really popular, this wouldn't be a thing. Why doesn't she warp home or destroy the demon? I'm forced to assume that her ability to warp home or kill the demon with magic is deactivated right now, but I shouldn't just assume that. She's shown the rest of her tribe, which are microscopic, and so are her opponents. She says that's unfair, and if the writer knew this, why did he write it? This isn't funny. You can do dark humor well, and this isn't it. It's just mean and confusing. After she accidentally steps on one of her teammates and somehow isn't prosecuted for murder or injury because I guess the teammate was really tough, she jumps in a 3-legged race, and her opponent starts at the top of the rope climb and instantly wins. And the board pieces are invisible in the game of chess. That's dumb. Sabrina finally decides to even the odds with magic. She uses a spell to make her team grow while surprisingly admitting that she's slow as part of the spell. They think it's cool because they're big, but because bullshit, they get too big and the ground starts cracking as the host admits that he does to cheating around here. The ground's destroyed, and somehow Sabrina despairs for even 2 seconds that she might be devoured by a monster instead of just instantly casting a spell to defeat it. No, instead the stupid damsel has to be bounced away by a guy, Salem, even though he wasn't invited to the game show. If anyone can warp to it, why can't she warp out? He apologizes for taking so long to find her, calling her kiddo, and he zaps the demon. Why didn't she do that? She's seen him do it a lot. The demon starts going after her teammates and she refuses to give up on them like Salem wants. Sabrina says it's her fault the demon's going after them because she enlarged them. And then she asks why she didn't think of undoing the spell. Because she's an idiot? Why was she going to take so long? They're tiny enough to squeeze out from between the demon's teeth. Wouldn't witches have made demons extinct as a threat to them? Salem reassembles the broken hunt of that floating island. Sabrina should have been able to do that. Anyone can imagine this, so novice witch is no excuse. She's expected to play dodgeball with invisibles, blows out a torch, and uses the soot to coat her opponents. I'm glad she got a smart idea all by herself. Is she slow or not? Why the hell can't we see her hit them with the dodgeballs? This is horrible slapstick. She wins a first place trophy, and the story ends with Salem mistaking her teammates for fleas because she invited them over for a victory party. Why is this news to him? He was here the whole time. In the comedy page, Zelda and Hilda keep zapping up dresses for her first summer social, and ends with her having a funny-looking dress, as I was expected to believe Hilda's into sassy and Zelda's into sweet when they usually have the same personality. In the next story, a monster holding a message reaches through the closet door, and Zelda immediately knows it's for Salem, and he doesn't want it to be accepted. Why does nobody ever listen to his warnings? Sabrina ignores him. When I was her, I'd just destroy it. Why doesn't he zap it to death? She says it's on papyrus, and Salem says it's a fine for an overdue book from the Library of Alexandria. I guess they did things differently back then, since the fine's really huge. When nowadays, the library fines actually stop increasing at some point that's much earlier than people think. Why does Salem care about this fine unless there's another realm equivalent to the library that's still standing? Sabrina asks why they're hassling Salem after all this time, and Salem gets the idea to go back in time with a book to before he borrowed it. Why can't he just go back in time to return it when he's supposed to instead of creating a paradox? I don't see why I'd screw this up, logically. I guess he'll be handed a giant idiot bowl. Why is no witch expected to do this to avoid every fine? And for some weird reason, Salem's allowed to revert to human form when he goes back in time. Good thing, or the plot would be impossible. He plans to give Alexander the book to put in his library. So why don't all transformed witches go back in time so that they never have to deal with being non-human? I guess we're supposed to believe that a lot of them are too stupid to think of that, but after all the time they were non-human, they would have thought of that eventually. Maybe transformed witches are allowed to go back in time for a little bit, or Salem gets punished for this off-screen. He's thanked for putting the book back as two people really annoyed the audience. But why does Salem think this will avoid his fine? He's supposed to return it after the point where he checked it out, idiot. Why isn't Salem running away immediately? Nothing bad happens but shitty humor though. And he hopes he'll get home in time for supper, when if he can time travel, he'd go to wherever he wants. And the story ends with them getting home for supper no problem. That was it? Won't he still be fined? Oh great, this piece of shit story. This is a story where Sabrina's forced to be dressed like a witch by what's probably a magical spell cast on every witch by the Witches' Council, because it's Halloween. So she's forced to show her witch pride. If it's forced, it's meaningless coming from her. Why do they do this? It wouldn't be so bad if Harvey didn't get mad at her because he expected her to be dressed in a way that went with his king costume, and now she can't. It could have so easily not been an inconvenience to her. That's just mean-spirited. Sabrina does a quick thinking lie for once that her aunts are dressed up as witches too because they had one of those funny family photos at the mall. Witch Pride Day only happens once every 50 years or so, depending on the moon cycles, as opposed to actually being once a year, which would make a lot more sense. So what, are they only proud of being witches every 50 years? Thanksgiving is given more priority. Hilda says it's lucky for her that it falls on Halloween this time. Logic would dictate that it always be on Halloween, instead of the witches on Earth being forced to be humiliated and make people suspicious of them. Zelda says they'll escort her back to her house and they can change for the parade, but oh no, they're gonna walk around some more. Sabrina clearly asked when she can take it off and didn't even get a straight answer, like an hour from now, for example. Also, if these witches had brains, at least one of them would cast a spell so that everyone around them doesn't see the witch costume she's wearing, and instead sees the costume that Harvey wanted her to be wearing. Sabrina says that she feels like she always had this outfit and it fits perfectly. That's confusing too. She tries to change into her queen costume soon because she doesn't get the hint, but then the witch costume attacks her. Why wasn't she warned about this? It was obvious that she might do this. Maybe she wouldn't have done this if she was told exactly how much time she has to wait first. Why didn't Salem stay with her? Her not being warned about things makes her aunts and everyone else look irresponsible, and yet she's the only one we're supposed to see as irresponsible. The outfit forced her to make her fly away on a broomstick. Yeah, this plot sucks. I actually didn't remember this. And that's usually because the twist is so stupid that it's unintuitive. Salem talks as if a renegade costume can happen a lot. This should be explained. Explain that the person who individually cast the spell to summon the outfit in her size after looking her size up from a database was evil. It's mean, but more realistic than this. This isn't technology. Why would it glitch out? Why would he talk as if a renegade costume can happen a lot instead of simply saying, like I assumed, that every costume does this when you try to take it off, because Witch Pride Day isn't over yet. How would only a few costumes be renegade? She says she has to get into her queen costume, and Salem says they'll keep an eye out for Harvey. The costume wakes up and forces her to fly around in a circle, and she can't just zap it like Salem did. Why exactly? It should at least be explained that this is a punishment for trying to take off the witch costume like a self-hating witch, but that's apparently not it, because Salem talks like it's a renegade costume and he's heard that this can happen. So why is it so special? Sabrina cries and says her date with Harvey is ruined. So he is her boyfriend now? Why didn't we see them arrange their first date? Why didn't we see what prompted that? If she's just delusional, why did they think that would be appealing to the audience after 20 years of the series? Salem says that apparently any qualified other realmer can wear one of the outfits. So Sabrina hugs him and calls him a sweetheart, as I'm wondering why this kind of loophole is allowed, and why she wasn't told about this in the first place. The story ends with Salem being dressed like a witch, as I wonder why it fits him, and the joke is that he's embarrassed at being forced to dress like a girl. I don't remember this either, so it must have been confusing. The first story, by Mike Gallagher, is an arbitrary plot where once again Sabrina's forced onto an unfair game show that would be illegal. At least the actual plot is better than the last time this happened, because Sabrina actually used her magic and got to triumph instead of just dodging one lightning bolt, and she won. But she shouldn't have needed anyone to save her. The second story makes me wonder why Salem didn't return the overdue library book to a period of time where it was after when he'd check it out. How did he expect this to make his fine go away? I love that the story wasn't cruel to Salem at every turn. What a compliment. It literally was as simple as it should have been for him. But it barely had a plot then. I had the third story as a kid, and I hate how arbitrary it is that the witch costume that forces itself on her actually goes rogue on its own and makes her miserable, and she can't simply use magic to get out of that situation instantly. Why wasn't she told that she could have just made Salem wear it right away? That was just mean. I could buy that witches would be forced to wear a summoned witch costume on a holiday because they have to show witch pride, especially with a dictator like Enchantress over them. Even then, it's still too depressing and makes no sense when they're trying to keep witches a secret. The fact that it's a renegade outfit, and not every outfit is like this, just makes it even more confusing. Worst of all, it was needlessly mean to have Harvey get mad at her for not wearing a queen costume instead. She was fine with dressing up like a witch at a fair earlier. It could have easily not been an inconvenience to her. In the sitcom, Sabrina was actually happy to dress like a witch on Halloween because she's a witch.